everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of the Read Right to Left podcast. I, as always, am G, joined by my always wonderful co-host, Ray, from Whimsical Pictures.
Hi, all.
And this month is sort of a blockbuster month. It's the first of the 2025 year podcast. It's also a double podcast. Well, I guess double month special because we were very late recording this December.
We
highlights.
had holidays, we had flu, we had work troubles. It was a lot.
A lot, yeah. So apologies for being late, but I think hopefully you should be able to forgive us because we're going to be talking about 10 exciting and really standout debuts from the last year, 2024. We do this every year. We have 5 each of our favorites, although there's very often a lot of crossover. Not as much fighting over the top spots, but that was because I seeded most of Ray's choices when I read them. I was like, yeah, that's
a Ray book.
I'm not even gonna try to say, hey, can I talk about this? And I just knew that it would be easier this way. But yes, so I think we have a really interesting mix of stuff. A lot of titles that you probably have heard of and are reading. There's also maybe some titles you are not aware of and should try out.
Yep.
But ahead of that, Ray, I know you had like heaps of what's the word? Runners up.
I do. So I'm gonna be really quick about them. So I don't know how many you have. Mm-hmm. And I have a feeling that there's overlap here as well.
Probably.
Starting with something that I'm sure G read and enjoyed, just like I did, which is Home Office Romance.
Yes.
This is the Sweat and Soap creator.
Yes.
Just a one-shot that she did over, like, the pandemic, like, shortly following it or during it. Started out as a one-shot chapter, ended up being a full volume. It's about just like 2 neighbors in the same apartment complex. They live right next door to each other. And they're both start out working from home. She's like a student, so she kind of commutes.
She's a grad student
to school and back. And later on, after the pandemic sort of after they loosen some of the restrictions, she ends up going on like an archaeological dig. But for the most part, there's a lot of working from home on the part of both of them. And they kind of, especially the main male character, it's him going through the process of figuring out how to work comfortably at home, making his apartment work for him. He puts a really cute garden in his balcony, and sort of discovering the little pleasures of working from home after having, not done that before, and then hitting it off with his next door neighbor. And ultimately they end up in a romance with each other and eventually get married, which we know early in the volume is what ends up happening to them. So that's not a spoiler or anything. Yeah, it's just like a really well-written little romance snapshot. Very healthy couple, as you would expect from the Sweat and Soap creator. It was lovely. Very warm fuzzies.
Yeah, I really, really loved this one. It got very close to being in my top 5. There's just something really... It's not a complicated story. It's fairly, these are how these people met. But it is kind of a fun... want to say contradiction, but the idea that during a period when people were meant to stay far from each other and not get too close in order to not spread a deadly pandemic, these two neighbors ended up connecting in a way that they hadn't for the years that they had actually been neighboring each other prior. So it was fun. It was a cute little how adversity and maybe a change in circumstance can open up your world and change your life.
Yeah.
Even in really bad situations like with COVID.
Just felt very, like, down to earth, very relatable. Both of them feel like people that I know, like, they're very specific people, but it's like they feel quite real, so, yeah. The next one that I wanted to shout out is called, it's sort of an LGBTQ manga, but it's more just kind of offbeat slice of life. It's My Oh My Atami-kun. It's just, it's about this kid who, he starts out having a crush on one classmate, but we find out pretty quickly that he's very quick to fall in and out of love, right? He has a lot of crushes. But he sort of ends up becoming friends with the guy that he is initially has a crush on at the beginning of the book. And it's just kind of following his, like, their friendship. He doesn't, like, his parents are never home. But so this friend invites him over to his house for dinner because he has a very lively family who always has dinner together. So Atami starts going there, like, all the time for dinner. And, we see him meet another kid who's kind of a loner, kind of offbeat in a similar way to him, and they strike up a friendship. And it's very, very laid back. It's small town as well. They all speak in dialect. But I don't know. It's kind of a case where this was exactly what I expected it to be. But it's like the best version of what I expected it to be. It's really charming. And I think it's full of, like, these weird little insights into, I don't know, just, like, tiny aspects of friendship and school and just, like, being a queer kid in this small town school where he's not really experiencing a lot of discrimination. It is there, but, like, his friends are pretty cool. So it's like, I don't know. Again, it's just a case of it feels authentic. It feels real. And it's just got these little offbeat, little funny insights into daily life that feel honest and feel worded in a way that I haven't seen worded in quite the same way anywhere else. It's kind of like that. Reminds me of, like, one of those cozy, like, works of Japanese literature, like the ones with a title like, My Cat and the Coffee Shop or whatever that keep coming out. It kind of feels like that kind of Banana Yoshimoto maybe kind of thing. Did you read this one?
Very good. I did not read this one, so that's a good one to know. I'll pop it on the ever-expanding list.
This one feels G-core. I think you'd like it.
It probably is. It's just been, crazy couple of weeks.
Well, as we've gone over, I have not necessarily gotten around to any of the titles G is going to talk about on her top 5 list, so... Um, Before I go on, did you have any
Mm.
also rants you wanted to mention?
I wanted to mention Witch Hat Kitchen, which is a spin off of Witch Hat Atelier. This is the slice of life food cooking manga. I've talked about it before on the podcast. It's really sweet and cozy, and it's just more of the like what you already enjoy from this series. It certainly has more for the shippers. You know, it. I love the main series, so more is always better for this type of thing. But with it being a spin-off, I knew that there'd be more like original titles that I wanted to talk about as well. It's not stand out in the way, I mean, it's a fantastic example of this kind of genre of manga, the kind of cozy cooking, domestic type of story. But you know, there's other titles that I wanted to talk about more for my actual picks for the year. So although this is a fantastic series and one that I think fans of the series and also fans of these domestic kind of cozy cooking or in fantasy cooking manga can all enjoy, it's, you know, it's a runner-up for me this year.
The next one I wanted to mention is, we got another Yamada Murasaki title this year, called Secondhand Love. This is the creator of Talk to My Back, which is an excellent collection of feminist comics about the experiences of a housewife, basically raising an extra child in the form of her husband, partner, in addition to her young kids, which of course he doesn't really help with, and all the pressures of being a woman in that stage of her life. In the, was this the 80s or the 90s that this came out? 80s, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Secondhand Love, this one also definitely has, you know, a distinct feminist bent to it. It's got the sort of quiet, resigned cynicism that is also present in Talk to My Back. But this one might be a bit more contentious of a topic. Because this is about a couple different women and their experiences dating married men, having affairs with married men. I did not enjoy this as much as Talk to My Back, but I did find quite a bit of value in its insights. I think it has an interesting sort of analysis of like why its characters are making the choices that they are, why these women are continuously making the choice to essentially remain in a mediocre affair with a guy that they know is treating his family like shit and doing this, right? And who is too cowardly to enter into a real relationship with them. But it comes out being like, you know, these women are finding empowerment in this kind of transgression. But like also while realizing that it's trapping them at the same time. And sort of the women recognizing in themselves that they are doing something that is quite selfish, because they recognize the pain that they're causing the wife, and ultimately the kids as well, but they just don't. They care about their own personal sense of freedom more. So we end up with, I think, quite a complex portrait of some women making very questionable decisions that they
Yeah.
know are questionable, but they keep making them anyway. Um, I think it's a book worth reading. I think if you liked Talk to My Back, read this one too. But if you were going to choose one Yamada Murasaki book, I would definitely go with Talk to My Back.
Yes, yeah. No, I agree. I think there's always it sounds I guess reductive to say there's always nuance when it comes to telling a story about infidelity in a, I guess, mature way.
Mm-hmm.
But and as someone who like personally is like I treat infidelity very seriously. I don't, and I think it's something that does. It is, as Ray said, and part of the reason why this is interesting and good is the acknowledgement and the self-reflection of the selfishness of it, especially from like the non-married partner's part, but also why there's some, I guess, acknowledgement as well as why women cheat with married men versus like the married men cheating with an unmarried woman. So there's that sort of difference in how things can influence.
I feel like you get like a lot of attempts to like paint cheating men, like the married men in these situations, as like nuanced and complicated and like all that, while like relegating the woman in this case to the role of like the whore in the Madonna whore complex. And this kind of turns the table on that, where it's kind of like the men don't get a whole lot of development, like they're just shitty. And mediocre too. Like they are definitively just cowardly, mediocre men who are mediocre in bed and like not even really catches. Right? The women are making this choice for their own reasons. That is
this is not some grand love affair, you know, for the fairy tales of the world. This is like two selfish people making shitty decisions that affect a lot more people than just themselves, and sort of how that and the differentiation in that, right? So it's a really good book, but I agree to your point. If you're wanting to read one particular, if you had a choice between the two books from this author or this mangaka that we've gotten, Talk to My Back is probably more digestible, maybe is not the right word, but one that I think more people will be more open to exploring and discussing and having a adult conversation about.
Yeah, I also just it's a work with a broader appeal, certainly. And I just like, I think it feels like the more mature work between the two. I'm not super sure of the timeline of the two. Comparatively, I know Talk to My Back was across like multiple years, so I'm not sure where this one falls into Murasaki's like timeline of creation, but that one it feels more, I don't know, full, robust. It feels like kind of a magnum opus, right? So, but this one, again, Secondhand Love, it's worth reading, especially if you liked the other one, or if the topic interests you, because there's not really a whole lot of like works that go this deeply into the psyche of the other woman, I guess. without just like trying to make you feel bad for the man.
or painting this other woman as like completely irredeemable and horrible horror.
Or on the other hand, like a stupid child who couldn't see that he was married,
Oh, oopsies! I didn't realize. Yeah, so it is it's a mature work that I think if you have the maturity to kind of interrogate it on its own storytelling and how it's showing these relationships is well worth the read if it is something that interests you and is very unlike a lot of similar stuff.
Yeah. Did you want to give another one?
I will. It's very different in genre and tone. This is one that I had my eye on for a little while. It's been released, I think, in its entirety by Yen Press. This is a title called A Sinner of the Deep Sea.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a mermaid series. That is not why I wanted to read it. I wanted to read it because this is a series that was released or published in Harta magazine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, imagine if Kaoru Mori did a mermaid series, this would be it. It is not Kaoru Mori who created this series, but oh my goodness, it certainly could fit within her library of works very, very easily. This is by Akihito Tomi, a 3-volume series. The main character is this kind of rough and tumble, no nonsense mermaid who is best friends with this other mermaid who's like quite well known. I think she's a famous singer and dancer. Not I think she's a famous dancer. I singer and dancer, and then who falls in love with a human despite all of the laws against it, and so she's arrested by the military police basically, and our main character is now trying to, I guess, sort the situation out. She's promised her friend that she'll release her, help her escape, and reunite with this very dweeby human man that she met on the surface in order for her friend to find true love. It's not complicated. I'm not a big into mermaid stories or anything. It's not like something I would normally be interested in aside from being published in this magazine. But I do think that, like a lot of Harta stuff, it does... there's a lot of plot, or not a lot, but there's quote-unquote plenty of plot in this series. It makes sense. It's only 3 volumes long, and you need to kind of develop your characters fairly quickly. But I do think that there's a lot of... I think the mangaka revels in the setting a lot. There's the opening chapter is our main character swimming with a whale, and there's just some like beautiful little quiet moments where nothing's said, and you kind of absorb the setting, which is why it, not just Kaoru Mori's work, it reminds me of stuff like Hachiko, oh my god, Michi no Hachiko, which is also from Harta. Just this very Iyashike feel, even though there's a lot of like other plot happening as well. It's not, a must read necessarily, but I did enjoy... For someone who doesn't like mermaid stories, I did enjoy this one. So it is worth, if you like kind of this setting, if you like mermaids, if you like, kind of fantasy romance series if you just like this Kawamori-esque style of work. And honestly, like, I'm not exaggerating when I say it's very reminiscent of Mori. The art style, everything is very, very similar.
This is someone who is a fan of Kawamori's work for sure.
Yes, yeah, and it's certainly no A Bride's Story or Emma or anything like that. But I do think that if you're wanting something in a similar vein, you don't mind a fantasy setting, and you're just hanging out for volume 15 of A Bride's Story, this might be able to tide you over until then.
This series, it's definitely beautiful. I definitely didn't like it as much as I liked other Harta stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Usually I don't mind when series are just, like, on godly levels of horny. This one, it was bothering me, though. It's just, like, every other panel is, like, a shot of one of the main characters, like, tits or something. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. Kawamori is also horny for the female form, for sure, but she's got a way with it, you know? She's got a way with it. It's...
I might be, not desensitized to that, but I have read, what is that called? It's another series that one of the smaller publishers put out, from Harta / Fellows, that was just, like, so beyond horny that, like, this didn't even register in my mind as...
Is this the one, like, the bikini armor one with the giants or whatever?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So,
this
like...
is not... Well, it's not as kinky as that one. It might be as horny.
Well, it's not even just not as kinky. There's just... Oh my goodness. There's a lot going on in that other one. To which I could have a whole other podcast episode about. So, like, this legitimately... I agree that there's a lot of, like, horny... Oh, look how hot these mermaids are. But I think just mermaids lend themselves to that as well. So, I'm just like,
It is definitely beautiful. I also have a mermaid title to talk about. Which is a short story collection by Kaori Ozaki, who has The God's Lie from her has come out in English, as well as The Golden Sheep. We got a short story collection from her this year called Mermaid Prince. This is one I'd actually read in Japanese before, so it was interesting going back and revisiting it in English after a few years. This collection is well worth reading. Especially if you've enjoyed other works from Kaori Ozaki. But for me, I think I prefer her as a creator in shorter form works. I think that she has a very interesting way of seeing the world and seeing human relationships. That can get a little too cynical, a little too heavy for my taste in a longer form work. But in these sort of bite-sized chunks really hits for me. We just have these sort of stories of young people who are kind of disillusioned, who are feeling alone in the world, kind of floundering about until they collide with some other young person, you know, for a night or for one strange, mysterious, somewhat mystical encounter, only to never see each other again Um, one of the stories in this does have a mermaid in it, more in the Goblet of Fire style of mermaids that are scary. But that one ends up being one of the more heartwarming stories in the book. Yeah, it's just a solid short story collection from a creator who definitely has a very strong point of view and a very unique point of view. And I really like her art style. It feels very effortless, and very charming. So, yeah. I still have more to go. Do you still have more to go?
Let me hear what you are gonna talk about, because some of them might not. Well, some of them probably are on my long list, but I also just my long list is very off the cuff compared to yours.
Yeah. So, all right. I wanted to mention. I really want to go quickly through these last few. So one, that the whole series came out this in 2024, because it's 3 omnibus volumes long. It didn't really stick the landing for me, but I was glued. My eyes were glued to the page through the whole thing, so I still wanted to put it on my long list. This is King in Limbo.
Yep.
I figured you probably also read this.
Yes. I haven't read the entirety of it yet. I have read the first half, or first 2 omnibus, which is actually 2/3 of the series.
Yep.
But yeah, no, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, this is science fiction. It's after a strange pandemic called the sleeping disease has just completely ravaged the world, really. This is several decades after that, and after they came up with a cure for it. It is coming back, and it is a much stronger and more dangerous strain. So we've got our 2 definitely not gay and in love with each other. Totally attracted only to women, not to each other. We have, our buddy cops are conspicuously attractive 30-something men. One of them is he's a veteran soldier. He's lost a leg, so he's no longer able to fight. But after going through the whole process of getting a prosthetic and learning how to live without one of his legs and live with the prosthetic, and goes through all the therapy and stuff, they're hey, you can't fight anymore, but we want you to help out with trying to cure this new strain of the sleeping disease. Because what they do to cure it is they send someone into the person's dreams to find the source of their trauma and, basically therapy them back into health. The trauma metaphors here are extremely subtle and graceful. You might not even notice the metaphors going on here. They're super complex and hard to parse, inscrutable, truly.
Absolutely.
So, they gotta go into the dreams, Inception style, and therapy these people back into health. And it needs to be a team of 2. So you need the person who's able to do the dream diving therapy thing, and the person who's gonna be able to sort of keep their grip on reality while in the dream world and help pull the dream diver back into reality, back into the waking world. You may notice that this is an excellent setup for a really homoerotic buddy cop setup here. So we have our dream diver, who is one of the people who's like almost single-handedly responsible for ending the pandemic last time. The government kind of downplays exactly how singular his contribution was, but he is known as the King of Limbo because of his contributions. He has since lost his wife and his custody of his daughter, and he is miserable, bitter, hates the system, hates what he was forced to do, does not want to come back. And then we've got our big buff veteran soldier guy who is a golden retriever man. Just wants to help people and make the world better. Who they send him because, of course, they did some sci-fi tests on the two of them and found out that they're, incredibly compatible.
Oh my god.
In a super heterosexual way.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Like,
There's
truly
never been a pair like these
compatible on a level we've never seen before. Just insane chemistry between these two men. In a heterosexual way, of course.
Yes. No. Don't even think
for a second that there's anything homosexual going on here. They're not gonna kiss.
No.
They're not.
No. They just dive into dreams together in a very heterosexual way. They are each other's lifelines back to reality in a heterosexual way.
Nobody understands them like they understand each other. In completely unrelated news and information, this ran in the same magazine as Descending Stories, Showaken no Kuraku go Shinju. Another incredibly heterosexual series.
Yes, of course.
From a creator definitely not known mainly for her BL.
No. Not at all.
So, this is just like, it's very Hollywood. It does take place in America.
Yes.
It feels like you're watching like a big blockbuster movie, but it has like decent politics also.
Yes.
And it's really gay. So, what else could you want? Also, we have like a buff sort of, he starts out with more hair than he ends up with, but he is like, he's a more masculine body type and face type character design than you typically see in BL and BL adjacent things.
This is not BL.
It's not BL.
Get it twisted.
But if you're into that kind of man and you kind of want to see him schmoozing up to, say, an albino twunk who's very bitter about his circumstances, might be up your alley. Might be a series to check out. That's all I'm saying. Like I said, the last volume was a bit of a disappointment in terms of a lot of these series, they front load a lot of their good ideas and then don't quite know how to bring it all together in the end. And I definitely felt that way here.
Yes, yeah.
But it's still a fun read. And it's short. Again, 3 omnibus volumes. And I found that the characters had quite a bit of chemistry with each other. It's a good series.
Yeah. I agree. It's I agree on all you've said, including that I don't know that it sticks the landing. I would say if you're wanting like a better dream diving series, you'd be better served by something like Otherworld Barbara.
Yes.
But if you're just wanting some extremely heterosexual men in a Hollywood movie who also want to dive into dreams, then this is a pretty good one to spend your time with.
Yep. Yes. All right. Let's see. Next. I wanted to just mention My Dear Detective meets Ghost Case Files. Takes place in the Taisho era. Female detective. She's, you know, a modern woman, independent woman who don't need no man, but there is a man who keeps poking into her affairs. But she doesn't need him or any man. No. She is hyper-efficient detective. Going around solving crimes. It's like cozy mystery stuff. And the focus is generally not on the mystery or the whodunit aspect so much as it is every time it turns out that the quote-unquote culprit is generally someone with some kind of marginalized identity that isn't well understood during the Taisho era, or often even still today in modern Japan. But certainly in the Taisho era. And, you know, she learns about their circumstances, gives them, like, a super feminist pep talk. And it's all very heartwarming. They become everybody's friends at the end of these chapters.
Yes.
The art style is retro in a kind of like it looks like, I don't know, late 90s, early aughts. There's something Yu Watase about the art style here. There's something Marmalade Boy about it. I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint exactly, but it feels nostalgic. The guy here is, you know, he turns out, of course, to be the heir to some department store like Mitsukoshi.
Yes. Mr. Rich Boy.
Yeah, off-brand Mitsukoshi. You know, who also has pretty progressive politics for the time. And he just wants to use his resources to also solve cozy crimes with Mitsuko.
And perhaps become a wife guy one day.
Yes. He's definitely interested in her. She is definitely annoyed by him. But the dynamic here does not feel predatory. It just feels very rom-com. You can tell there's a spark there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The heterosexual Holmes and Watson, right?
Yeah.
But with more cozy mysteries.
And feminism.
And feminism, absolutely. Less cocaine, but more feminism.
Yeah, it's just like, it's cute, right? It's cute, it's cozy, and it's stylish. It's set in the Taisho era. Also, the first chapter has, like, a trans woman, and that's cool, you know? Yeah. Solid. I might keep reading it. I might not, but it's...
I don't remember if we discussed this one in our mystery episode, mystery manga episode, because
maybe you did,
which was a long time ago now. Because this did have a digital first release on Azuki. So it's really exciting that this one's jumped to print. I mean, obviously there's still the digital release as well, and that one's a simulpubbed one. It's I didn't read this one just because I had already read it like 2 years ago, something like that. But I think it's one that if you do like these kind of historically set, cozy mystery mangas in the same vein as like Usutoki Rhetoric, which has more of a supernatural twist, I guess, to it, as well as just like the cozy mystery stuff, then this is certainly one to check out. And if you're a fan who has been waiting for it in print, then it's certainly one that I think a lot of people will enjoy having on their bookshelves or in their collection.
Yep. And then I just want to finish up by mentioning a couple of exciting classic series that have come into print. One of them is one that I don't believe... It might be one that we've gotten, like, just a couple volumes or something, like, way back when and then never again. But I think we've never had it. But we got Ashita no Joe in English.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah. So if you like Rocky, man. If you like Rocky. This is, oh gosh, like honestly one of the most important manga. Period. It's so influential on so much that came after it. It's also really not my thing. But I really wanted to mention it because it's really exciting that we're getting it in English. Ashita no Joe is, it's a boxing manga. And it really is just basically Rocky, to be honest. Like,
yeah.
It's, he starts out as a rough and tumble kid from the slums, but then he meets a down and out former boxing... Well, he's a former boxer who has been looking for, like, a prodigy to, teach his skills to. And he finds that in our protagonist. And a lot of boxing stuff ensues. Yeah. And, like, boys being boys. And, all that whatever that is not, like, aggressively not my thing. But, you know what? Your dad's gonna love it.
Absolutely.
So I did want to mention that one. The other one is definitely much more my thing, and this is one that has been super out of print for years and years and years and years and years. And it is back in print now, baby, in omnibuses.
Ooh, yeah.
We've got Red River, which is one of the classic 90s shoujo isekai series. About a girl who gets, like, dragged into a puddle and ends up in the ancient Hittite Empire, except it's full of white people for some reason. This one is actually really not, like, a series that I super love. There's a lot of sexual assault in it, especially early on. And the setting, I feel, is not as firmly established as I generally prefer in these. As someone who's a huge fan of, like, the 12 Kingdoms, right? Like, completely unfair to, like, compare almost anything to the 12 Kingdoms level of, like, world building. But, even something like Fushigi Yugi, to me, feels more firmly established. And since this is like a historical setting, and an interesting one at that, like I wish there was more ancient Hittite Empire vibes here.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people are super excited to see the series back in print. I'm excited to see it back in print because it's just like, this is a genre that I love so much, and this is one of the sort of classic staples. And it's just vibes, you know? Like,
yeah,
it just, those 90s, like, shoujo isekai series, they have an energy to them, an aesthetic to them that is all their own. So, happy this one's back in print, especially for all the people who like it more than I do.
Mm-hmm. And my last kind of, on that similar vein, I have 3 more titles that I want to talk about just briefly. 2 being the re-release, well, 1 being the re-release of Cat-Eyed Boy, which is very exciting in print.
Woo!
And perfect edition hardcover, beautiful, is very exciting. We love Cat-Eye Boy on this podcast.
Yes, we've talked about it in depth in multiple episodes at this point.
I also wanted to flag that Umez also had another title be released for the first time this year called My Name is Shingo. That is a more sci-fi series, which is also very, very good. I'm very Umez, so again, if you like sci-fi horror, definitely check that one out. And then
unfortunately, Umez himself did pass away over the past year, in October, which is thematic. But yeah, that one was a real bummer. That's probably one of the celebrity deaths that hit me the hardest over the past year. But
absolutely. And so, if you haven't tried out his works before, do. I mean, what are you doing? We've talked about him nonstop on this podcast, but if you're wanting something newer that you maybe haven't heard of and haven't tried, Shingo's a good one. And yeah, it's just fantastic having Cat-Eyed Boy back in print and available. The third title is also another beloved creator on this particular podcast, and that is Taiyo Matsumoto. We got the entirety of his newer series, Tokyo These Days, which is... I enjoyed this one quite a lot, but I also am highly cynical about, like, manga about manga. This sort of revelry that some mangaka have in, like, showcasing mangaka, which I think this particular series, Tokyo These Days, does really, really well, especially highlighting kind of the cynicism of the industry, and also how fickle manga publishing within Japan and outside, but in Japan especially, can be to creators and creative ideas, but then also just like the artist dilemma of, you hate your art but you can't not be an artist. So I think that was done really well, which is, I mean, Taiyo Matsumoto is phenomenal at everything he does, so I expected to enjoy this one a lot. I always read his stuff whenever it comes out, and this one is very strong, 3 volumes, definitely one to check out if you are a fan of his work. And which also, have also just remembered, we also got a re-release of Go-Go Monster, which is another one of those titles that's been out of print forever, and is certainly probably not the most well-known of Matsumoto's works, but very, very interesting and very worth reading if you haven't yet.
Yeah, that one's one of my favorites of his. So.
And with that, I think we're done with the...
We're done with the also rans. All right. So, would you like to start and give us your number 5?
Okay. Well, as always, my numbered list is pretty... number 1 is always my number 1, and then the others are just like wherever I feel speaks to me the most they need to sit, and which can change even depending on my mood. But my number 5 is one, well, as Ray alluded to, she hasn't read any of the series that I will be talking about, which is frankly rude.
Yeah, sorry.
So my number 5 is a title called The Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity. This is a series that was released digitally, I think on one of the digital subscriptions first, but has recently made the jump to Kodansha's print releases. This is an opposites attract kind of manga. It's about a high school boy from an old boys school which is kind of very rough and tumble. None of the students really excel. It's the bad school. It's the bad school for bad boys. Our main character is not a bad boy, but he looks like a bad boy. He is very scary. This is very much within a similar vein of like Toradora or even or My Love Story, closer to My Love Story, but our main male character isn't like hyper masculine like in that series. he's just a kind of he looks like he's gonna cause trouble.
A hooligan.
In the same way. Yeah, hooligan, exactly. So, yes, Rintoro is our main character. He is a second year at this school called Chidori High, and Chidori High is the neighboring school to an old girls' school called Kikyo Girls High School, which is like all the well-to-do, very, girls from good backgrounds. And so the two schools do not interact. Again, this is a very, I don't really even say, well, it is an opposites attract series in a lot of sense, but it's very Romeo and Juliet. This is a romance if you can't tell. But one day, Rintaro helps, well, actually, no. So his family owns a patissiere, so he sometimes goes to work selling various sweets at his family's shop. And one of the regular customers is a girl called Kaoruko from Kyoko Girls High School. He doesn't know that immediately because she's not in uniform. But after they strike up a friendship, because he is so scary looking but is actually a golden retriever with a heart of gold.
Naturally.
Helps her out of a sticky situation, as most of these series tend to do. And they strike up a friendship which eventually evolves into more romantic feelings. And I really like Kaoruko in this series. She knows what she wants, she knows what she likes, she's very non-judgmental, she has no qualms about befriending a boy from this boys' school, wherein all of her friends and classmates just are shocked and appalled that she would even look at a boy from Chirori High. And so there's that, yeah. And his friends are like, "What? How dare you talk to one of these girls? You know that they all think they're better than us and are stuck up and blah blah blah." So it's one of those stories. It's very sweet. I liked both main characters a lot. I liked their dynamic a lot. I also appreciated that, similarly to my love story, which is why I bring it up, it's pretty obvious very early on that these two people will be in a romantic relationship. There's not a lot of time wasted on what is he thinking? Especially because Karuko is a very direct person. She's not one to hum and ha and second guess herself. So, whereas Rintaro is certainly more of that because he has been judged for how he looks for, all of his life. So you can understand the insecurity there. This is not one that's like reinventing the wheel, but it's sweet and I enjoyed it. I like a well done dynamic like this, and this is very well done. It's as I said, if you're wanting something somewhat similar to My Love Story or Horimiya, this one is certainly worth checking out. And is getting an anime next year, which is next year? Maybe year before. Or year after, I should say. So I expect that this will become even more well known. It's one that I've seen a lot of buzz on, like, shoujo manga social media, which I don't like to hang out in, but sometimes it's impossible to avoid. And this was one that I know that people have been very enthusiastic about, even prior to its licensing. I know that it's one that got shared around on Scanlation a lot. So yeah, it is certainly worth checking out if you're wanting just a sweet opposites attract Romeo-Juliet romance. The downside for me, and I can't really speak on this because I've only read the first volume, is that I believe it's like 14 or 15 volumes currently in Japan and still ongoing, which is just too many volumes. We know I like short, sharp, get to the point, don't drag it out. So perhaps that's what's happening, perhaps it's not, I don't know, but this is one for the library or for the e-reader for me.
This is one that just proves how out of the loop I've been this year with manga, because I had not heard of it at all. So completely off my radar. Sounds cute. Yeah. But I have not read it.
How about you, Ray? What is your number 5?
My number 5 is also a romance series about high schoolers. But I believe technically a josei.
Yes.
This is Sheltering.
And way less warm fuzzies.
Well,
some.
In its way.
Not...
In its way. This is Sheltering Eves by Rie Aruga, who is the creator of Perfect World. Continuing to be someone who's interested, I think, in raising awareness about social issues in Japan through sort of romantic dramas, as she did with Perfect World. So she is doing here. This is about two kids, a girl named Yoru and a boy named Tenjaku, who have grown up together at the same children's home, which is, I mean, it's sort of like an orphanage. It's a facility in Japan that it's sort of adjacent to like a foster family, but you're gonna have multiple adult caretakers working there, and like more kids than you would see a single foster family take in.
Yes.
And this was particularly interesting to me because I did work mostly like holiday like events and stuff at facilities like these when I was in Japan. We'd do like Christmas parties and stuff. And I'd always been more like interested in learning more about that system, because it is different from what we have in America. And this is definitely like very informative about that stuff. It's also like, it's the same with Perfect World, where it's like, even though this is not an Own Voices work from someone who grew up in a children's home, it's clear that Rie Aruga does her research. And it's clear that she really cares about making these issues more accessible to people to learn about, and to make general readers more aware of these issues, and to do so in sort of an inviting way through quite a well-written romance story. She has, just like in Perfect World, she puts in her acknowledgments, thank yous to the different organizations and people that she has reached out to for information and guidance. Yeah, it's just, she puts in the work, in my opinion. I can't speak from the perspective of someone who grew up in this kind of circumstance. But I am consistently, I don't know. Impressed isn't the word, but I guess it's like, I find that her works have value and worth in their exploration of these topics, even though she is not an Own Voices creator, if that makes sense. But on top of that, I think that the sort of, I guess, emotional turmoil that our two main characters go through, it feels very real. It's less like, Cinderella type, oh, they abandoned me on the street and I live in rags. It's more based on, you can tell, like, experiences that, actual people have in the world.
Yeah.
Yoru's situation is quite different from Tenjaku's, but they are both sort of dealing with similar issues of feeling like they don't belong in the world, feeling that they are unlovable because, the people who are supposed to love them the most were not able to raise them for their respective reasons. you know, we have experiences from other characters in the children's home who are only there seasonally or
Yeah.
who regularly visit their parents or receive regular visits from their parents, but for whatever reason have to live away from them. Um, I like that sort of breadth of experiences that are represented.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I just think it's well crafted. I'm rooting for the two main characters. They're clearly in
Mm-hmm.
mutual attraction phase, so it's also based a lot on an older policy that was still in place when the series started coming out in Japan, where
Mm-hmm.
these kids would have to leave the children's home to go live on their own at 18.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that is no longer the case, which the volume does uh, have a note about.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I think it's well worth reading. Just like Perfect World
Absolutely.
is also well worth
Mm-hmm.
reading.
It's one of those things that, like, I think if you've spent any significant time with less mainstream manga, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
these, yeah, I don't know, children's home, foster homes are something you're vaguely aware of, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not often that we get series from the perspective of children within these systems. Um, I think the only other example I can think of is Sunny by
Sunny.
Matsumoto, um, which is dealing with a younger group of kids, which obviously has its own nuances, but that it is something that I think is markedly, or I mean, there's group homes I know in the US, I'm sure in other
Mm-hmm.
places as well, that serve a similar function, but it is quite different from the foster system that we
Mm-hmm.
see more so in the Western world. So I think the care and the intentionality that this mangaka puts into her works, because I mean it's a romance series, and the idea is that we will probably have some characters who, if not end up together, will be on some sort of romantic journey together throughout the series.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not really just about that. It's
Mm-hmm.
about how circumstances can impact how you view relationships, which is what was also in Perfect World from a very different perspective as well, from this and a lot of romance. So I agree. It's one that if you want to support Josei, for one, if you want to try a series that has characters that are in pretty unhappy situations or circumstances from their childhood that a lot of people do grow up in, then but isn't actually really ever discussed or shown a lot of in media. I think it's just the way that Aruga highlights how a person's lived experience affects how they interact with other people is just so well done in the two series that I've read from her. And it's not a surprise that someone who took so much care into researching and working on a series that focused on disability would do the same for a different topic, a different but similarly important topic.
Mm-hmm. And her artwork has evolved. So,
Yes.
a lot less sort of anatomical awkwardness than was present in Perfect World. So, what is your number 4, G?
My number 4 is a series that, like, honestly wasn't on my radar at all. This is one that is also from Kodansha. This is a series that there was a lot of buzz for the actual publishing team when they announced it. But I don't know that many people really knew what to expect with this series. This is a seinen slice of life series called Sketchy. This is an ongoing manga in Japan by Hiroshi Maki, and it's about a woman who's in her kind of early mid 30s. I would say that she doesn't have a lot of drive to excel in life. She's working at a video rental store. She works full time there. Her boyfriend is a wannabe writer, who doesn't seem like he ever actually does any writing. I hope over the course of the series she gets rid of him, because he is awful. But she's got this, she has a hectic day-to-day life because she is kind of the manager of this video rental shop, but it's very aimless. She doesn't have any dreams. She doesn't have anything that she wants to do, really. She goes to a friend's birthday party, and all of her former high school friends, one, are living very different and flashy lives, whether their life is actually as wonderful as they make it out to be. They're in a different stage. They're all talking about marriage and their careers and success and blah, blah, blah. And she really doesn't feel like she can connect with them at all, which is fine. Like, I think there's also great value in not connecting with that sort of thing, but she feels very out of place even amongst people I don't know that I would call friends, but are the people that she knows and has known for a long time, and gets invited to, one drinks night a year or whatever. But one day, while she's meandering home from her video rental shop job, actually no, after she's coming home from a night out with the girls, quote unquote, where they're all living such wonderful lives and have dreams and careers and husbands or engagements and children and whatever else, she is a little bit drunk and stops to lay down underneath a cherry blossom tree, and all of a sudden this young hip teenage girl on a skateboard comes out of nowhere and does a really cool trick, and she's like, oh my god, these young people, they have so much energy. But the following, it sticks in her mind, and so she keeps kind of going back to that area to see, one, because it was mainly a shock for her as a, 34-year-old woman, to see a girl on a skateboard, which sounds not very good, but it's not what she expected. So she kind of stakes out this area. She keeps going back every couple of nights to see if she can run into that skateboarder again. She doesn't, but she does run into some of the other girls who are there, who are also skateboarders, and they show her all of these cool young women on Instagram who can skateboard. And so through the power of skateboarding, she kind of gets some more momentum and a bit more passion back in life. So she signs herself up for she signs herself up for beginners skateboarding classes. She's the oldest one there, but it's a catalyst to actually give her something that she really loves and wants to try and get better at. And then through her newfound interest and excitement, and passion, she sort of starts to inspire some of the other younger women, one of her co-workers, into trying as well. And it's how skateboarding is, like, this newfound passion for life is driven by skateboarding, and how girls can skateboard too.
Heck yeah.
But heck yeah, it's actually, as I said, this wasn't really on my radar. I remember when it was licensed, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, it was one that if I wasn't rating it for the podcast, or to try everything for the year, I probably wouldn't have gone out of my way to pick up. But it actually really pleasantly surprised me, and I think that Ako, our main character, as someone who is also in their early 30s, I can understand the aimlessness that can happen when you feel very disconnected from other people who are your same age but at different stages of life. I think this isn't an age thing. It's one of those things where, like, you start seeing your friends posting on Instagram about how they're, climbing Everest, or, going through the jungles of Peru, or, having a grand European tour, and you're at home eating Doritos and, watching your Netflix show, and you're like, man, what are they doing that I'm not doing? I think it's easy to, when you get caught up in I don't want to say the doldrums of life, but in routine and without change and without some kind of passion, which can be very hard to maintain as well. Life ain't easy, don't we know it? But I think it really highlights the importance of having something for yourself that isn't just, I need to live, so I work, and then I go home and I eat, and I don't want to think with my brain, so I go on social media, and then I don't sleep for 4 hours, and then I do sleep for 3 hours, and then I go do it all again. It's something to look forward to. It's like having that exciting thing, whether it's skateboarding, whether it's painting or knitting or going rock climbing or whatever. Skateboarding is what is shown in this particular series, and I think it's a fun, like, young people thing as well. So it's very dynamic, so it's fun to do. But I think for anyone who's wanting to get into a new hobby or try a new thing, to make a change in their life and break them out of that cycle of, wow, this is hard, and also why is everyone doing life better than me, and also what have I done wrong? Like, why is my karma so bad that life is bad for me? It's important to have passions, and it's something, like, we saw a lot in the pandemic when everyone was stuck at home and wasn't allowed to go to work. People discovering new passions, especially within the arts world. There's a huge, everyone did a sourdough starter, but also like, there's lots of people who started bookbinding or carpentry or whatever the hell. And discovered a new passion for life that prior to being forced to stay home for weeks, if not months on end, they were just going to their corporate job, pretending to write an email for 8 hours and then go home, sit in traffic for an hour and a half on the way home, and then go home and, yeah, watch TV for 4 hours whilst on their phone. So I think it's one that I've only read the first volume of this. There is a couple out, I believe. As said, I do hope she ditches the boyfriend, because I think there's a complacency with just sticking with someone because you've been together 4 or 5 years. Like, they have a conversation. One of her friends at this girls' night is like, "Oh, you've been with your boyfriend for 5 years. Are you thinking about marriage?" And she's like, "Oh, no." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, girl." I don't, like, people don't have to get married, but if you want to get married and your boyfriend, 1, doesn't have a job, 2, like, isn't even willing to, like, discuss it, girl, come on.
Girl.
Find someone else. Find a cool skateboard guy. He will be way better.
Love yourself.
Love yourself. Give yourself one thing, and that is love, because you deserve it. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one, and I think it's one that, regardless of gender, regardless of age, passion in life and passion and hobbies is a very important thing. But I do think for, like, women of a certain age, quote unquote, who haven't achieved certain milestones, this can really contribute to the sense of, like, helplessness or apathy, aimlessness.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it also really works in that sense. But yeah, it's really good. Read it.
Noted.
What about yourself? What is your number 4, Ray?
My number 4 is probably extremely predictable to our dear listeners who are aware of. I mean, to be honest, my list last year, which definitely had neighborhood stories at a very prominent point. We got another Ayazawa manga, classic Ayazawa manga,
yes.
Which is Last Quarter, and it's really good.
It is really good.
The second half of it actually just came out this month.
Mm-hmm.
So that didn't come out last year, but it's out now and I read it. So, I'm talking with the full context of, like, the whole story here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a sort of ghost story. We start out sort of in a very disorienting series of I guess flashes of past events, where we have a teenage girl who is kind of in a rebellious phase. She's feeling like, her parents don't understand her. Her boyfriend, she just found out, has been cheating on her, and he's kind of being really pathetic about it. Mm-hmm. And cheating on her with her friend, who is being not a friend about it at all. She just is kind of done with her family the way that teenagers sometimes get.
Yeah.
And she ends up running away from home, And going to this abandoned house, very large. It's like a mansion that's been abandoned for a very long time. And she meets a boy there. He's squatting in the house. British, young British man, musician. And they just like fall very deeply and very quickly in love. Mm-hmm. She ends up squatting at that mansion with him for like 2 weeks. There's something vaguely sinister about this guy, right? Things aren't completely adding up. We have a very scary scene where he gets very angry with her. He seems to be doing drugs. He refers to her by a different name and keeps saying, "This is your fault because you died." And in the end, he leaves, and she is absolutely destroyed by this. She's super codependent on this guy. He's her everything. So she goes to follow him and ends up at an intersection. She sees him on the far side of the street, like reaching out to her, and feels this overwhelming compulsion to join him. So she crosses the street and gets hit by a car. And then she ends up at the gates of heaven. She can't get into heaven. It's just a fence that goes on forever. But she feels that she desperately wants to get inside. She knows there's someone called Adam that she needs to see, but she doesn't remember anything else. And this is where she meets our other protagonist, a girl named Hotaru, I believe. She's a middle schooler. And she is also at the gates of heaven, very distraught because she's lost her cat and she's trying to find her. They end up finding the cat. The cat is like on the other side of the fence, so we can, infer, right? Use our thinky things to
put on our thinking caps.
Infer that this cat is no longer alive, and the Hotaru showing up at the gates of heaven is partially due to her grieving process over a beloved family pet. They sort of cross paths, the high schooler and the middle schooler, Hotaru. And they have sort of an exchange with each other, sort of become friends, fast friends there in the span of a single conversation. And then they kind of go their separate ways. The cat, Lulu, guides them away from the gates of heaven. And Hotaru wakes up. She has had an accident, but she's okay now. She's alive and well. And, her family's very relieved because she had a near-death experience. She ends up going to this sort of abandoned mansion that is supposed to be haunted. Sort of lured in there by this mysterious piano music she can hear from inside. As well as by a cat that looks alarmingly like her cat who's passed. And she goes into this mansion and ends up meeting the girl that she met at the gates of heaven. She doesn't remember this girl's name. Well, she doesn't know this girl's name. And the girl doesn't know her own name. She doesn't have any memory at all, except the knowledge that the house around her is familiar to her, and the name Adam, that Adam is someone important to her that she wants to see again. As well as this tune that she keeps playing over and over on the piano. She doesn't know where it's from, she doesn't know what it means, but she keeps playing it. So, Hotaru is kind of like, I can help you. Well, and also the other thing is that she can't leave the house. She's stuck inside. Hotaru ends up being like, oh, I can maybe help you find this Adam person. I want to help you. You seem so distraught and sad. You don't know anything about your past. And I want to help. Eventually, she ropes her little friend group, who are also middle schoolers, into helping her out with this girl who she has called Eve. Get it? Adam and Eve. It's like a whole thing. But when she brings her friends to the mansion, of course, it turns out that Hotaru is the only one who can see this young woman. And also the only person who can hear the piano, because the piano is broken. None of the keys work. But when Eve, writes things in a notebook or whatever, or interacts with, objects, they can see those objects floating in the air and moving on their own. So we know at this point that Eve seems to be some kind of ghost, and that Hotaru has a special connection to her because of her near-death experience. From this point on, it's sort of like a little... The kids have taken on this supernatural mystery. They want to figure out who Eve was, who Adam was, and what was going on between the two of them that makes Eve so desperate to see him. They want to reunite the two of them because they feel like if Eve reunites with Adam, she'll be able to go safely to heaven. All of her past regrets taken care of.
Yes.
Yep. So this is, I don't know, it's kind of a very quaint little ghost story. The protagonists are quite a bit younger than I think a lot of people associate Ai Yazawa with, if they've read Nana or Paradise Kiss. Neighborhood Stories is closer because those are high schoolers, but these are little middle schoolers. They're very precocious. They're adorable. They've got little adorable crushes on each other. And I love them. But yeah, you can kind of tell from the whole cat situation that we're dealing with sort of an allegory for the grieving process, and dealing with the death of a loved one. I think, having read the whole series now especially, that the series deals with that in a very sort of touching way. I think the mystery is very interesting. It had me guessing all the way through, and I kept, making new predictions for what was going to happen, and, there were some parts of it that I turned out to be right on, and then others that, came as unexpected to me, so that was cool. I like that, Adam is very clearly, Ayazawa's type. She totally wants, an overseas rocker who's, kind of a bad boy. But he's, I don't know, just the way in which he's so just vaguely sinister from the beginning. And you're just Eve seems to love him so much, but I'm just not sure what's going on here. I also actually really like her ex-boyfriend who fucking cheated on her. He plays more of a role in the second half of the story, but um, I thought that the way that he was incorporated into things was well done. I think he's a complicated guy, kind of an idiot, kind of wronged, someone who meant a lot to him. But is also not fundamentally like a bad person. Someone who does like genuinely really care about Eve. Yeah, it's just I love the relationship between the four little kids. They're all kind of dealing with their own, little pubescent emotions, but just like the core group in Neighborhood Story, they really, you can tell how much they care about each other and how much they're just always going to be there for each other. So even though they have their various, like, angst moments, like, they always know they can come to each other and that they got each other's backs. And it's very sweet.
I actually, I'm glad.
Yeah, it's just
like,
good.
I have
it, of course, also has Ayazawa's very
I've only read the
fashionable and stylish
I think
artistic and storytelling sensibilities,
like
which
1.5
are second to none. So,
but which I appreciated because my suspicion as to where the first volume might have cut off would have left me thinking this was a more typical Ayazawa work. I've made it pretty well known that I'm not like the biggest fan of Yazawa. It's not, I don't really like, I'm not a fan of her protagonist in Paradise Kiss. I understand her more now at my old age, but I've always found her like teenage girl main characters very frustrating, mainly because teenage girls are very frustrating. As someone who was a teenage girl, but I'm glad that although there is the element of the Adam and Eve story, that's not what the series is really about. As soon as the middle school characters came on board, I was like, okay, yes, I can do this.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, thank God.
No, same. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm getting bad vibes from this Adam guy because of me or because Yazawa actually wants me to, because she's definitely written men who are questionable, who are definitely meant to be like sexy and alluring and like the guy that you want. So
so I was very happy to be not like proven wrong, because I did go into this one with, I always go into most manga with very good faith, but having known that I do have a, I guess, complicated relationship with some of her other works, this one I didn't have that issue pretty much at all, especially once the, I guess, wider cast, quote unquote, was introduced, which is really nice and refreshing. And now the internet can uncancel me for being a bad Josei fan. Yeah, no, I agree, and this is a good one, especially if, I mean, Paradise Kiss isn't long, it's only 4 volumes, but Nana is extremely long, and Neighborhood Story is also fairly long. So if you're wanting something short and sharp and that isn't on indefinite hiatus, and you like Yazawa's work, check this one out.
Yep. Also, if you like mysteries, if you like ghost stories, especially like more cozy ghost stories, that are kind of more on the melancholy side than like the scary side. It's a good one to read. I like the kids going on their little Detective Conan mystery adventure. What is your number tres?
So my number 3 is probably, aside from my number 1, this is probably, well, actually, this would be the more popular out of the two. This is one that got huge fanfare when it was licensed by Viz. This is one that is kind of from very well-known mangaka, well-respected mangaka. It's kind of regarded as being one of the flagship Iyashikei currently.
Mm-hmm.
My number 3 is Hirayasumi, and as someone who is Iyashikei connoisseur, this is some damn good Iyashikei. This, for those who are unaware, this is a manga by Keigo Shinzo. I think there's half a dozen, maybe more, volumes in Japanese currently. It's been running since 2021. But this is the story of a young man called Hiroto, who he kind of is like the inverse of Ako from Sketchy. He's living a pretty cruisy life. He has no luck with girls. He's not a ladies' man, but, well, he is a ladies' man, but only if those ladies are 75 plus. So all the grannies love him, but get him in front of a woman his own age, and he becomes an idiot. Well, no, he becomes mute more so than an idiot. So he just can't handle girls his own age, especially pretty girls his own age. And he works at I don't know what, I know this is a thing in Japan, is a place where you can go to pay to fish. It's just like open fish ponds, and then you can hire a fishing rod and then just sit there for however long your allotted time and try to catch a fish. He's the guy who rents out the rods and makes sure that people aren't, I don't know, illegally stealing fish or whatever. So, and I think he's in his late 20s, like 28, something like that. And the premise of this series is that one day after going home from work, he also has a big appetite. That's his other like main characteristic. He accidentally, I think, somehow he gets invited into dinner by this crotchety old lady. Mm-hmm. She's very grumpy. I don't think she certainly doesn't have a husband around. I don't think she ever had kids. I think what happened was he was admiring her house, which is this beautiful old traditional home, during his walk back from work in kind of the evening, and he smells, and she's like, "What are you doing outside of my house?" And he's like, "Oh, it's a lovely house. I am not suspicious, I promise." And then he smells her home cooked dinner, and she's like, well, come in and have some food then. And then they become friends, right? Mm-hmm. So he has this friendship with this like 85-year-old woman who is very grumpy. She doesn't have very many friends, no kids, no husband. And one day, unfortunately, maybe a year down the line of their friendship, she passes away. Mm-hmm. And in her will, she leaves the house to him. So he inherits this big, beautiful, old, it's certainly needing a lot of work, home, which is because she recognized that he would be someone who, like, respected her home that she loved so much, and was a way, well, obviously she cared a lot about him and didn't have anyone else to leave it to, and knew that he would appreciate it. So, jump cut to present day. He has been in this home for not that long. She hadn't passed away that long ago, but he's moved in. He still has his kind of cruisy fishing rod job. He still is a hit with all the 85-year-old ladies, and just goes home, cooks, and basks in his home that is just reminds him of someone he did care about quite a lot. But his cousin comes to town, and she is starting university very soon, so she's freshly 18, moving to the big city, and because he has this giant house all to himself, she is going to live with him, and she is not very happy that she has to live in this old house with her layabout older cousin, who is all of 10 years older than him, and she is very, she's just one of those 18-year-olds who wants to have their big debut in university and wants to be trendy and cool, and everything about her cousin and his old house is not trendy or cool.
Cramping her style.
Absolutely. She's going to art school, so she's wanting to be one of the, artistic elites, and that the lifestyle that she's now found herself in, as a young country girl who wants a taste of the big city, this ain't it. And she is not very happy. But over time, she and her cousin reconnect, and she starts to gain a newfound respect for this beautiful old home and surrounding garden. So it's sort of just about their day-to-day lives, about these two in their house that was bequeathed to our main character. We also, at the end of the first volume, there's a young woman who I think she went to the fishing place for, I don't know, a hobby or whatever, and our main character said something dumb or just didn't handle the situation very well, and then she got really pissed off. And she is this high-achieving corporate woman, works in an office, again, like late 20s, and there is an illusion that a friendship/romance may develop there, but right now she kind of hates his guts. She thinks he's how dare he say that my hair looked nice or whatever. I can't remember what it was that pissed her off. He said, he didn't say like, oh, your hair looks nice, and then she just unreasonably got upset. I think he tried to say something, and then it kind of came out wrong, and then she took it the wrong way, and so there's something to do. Oh, and then also I think he got onto the last train and she couldn't make it on, and she's like, it's the guy, and so she's just like she doesn't like him very much at all. But there's illusions that we will see more of this character, and I'm sure she will learn to maybe slow down from her corporate job and stop to smell the roses a little bit more, which is not something that she's very good at right now. But yeah, oh my goodness, this is good.
I know I've heard that there's a lot of good exploration of like grief and stuff in this one. It's just not one that I picked up because I tend to be less drawn to those Yashike type series than you are. But yeah, I've heard nothing but good things. From you now, too.
Mm-hmm.
I say that I'm not usually drawn to a yashike. However, my number 3 is also an yashike, and it was made specifically for me. I'm not going to go super into this one because we have a whole podcast episode about the first volume, debut spotlight. But my number 3 is Colette Decides to Die by Alto Yukimura, which, well-known fact about me that I was over the moon when this got licensed for English release, that I have been pressing for this to get licensed for years, since I read it in Japanese. This series, just to give like the quickest of quick overviews, is about a girl named Colette who is the single, incredibly overworked apothecary in her small remote mountain village. She, at the start of the series, has hit her breaking point, and she is standing over the well in her backyard, just feeling incredibly overwhelmed, a little delirious. She remembers, as she's gazing into the well, a legend that she's heard that there is another world at the bottom of any well. And if you fall in a well, you'll end up in that other world. So she... it's less that she jumps in and more that she's just, like, gazing into it so intently that she, like, falls into the well. But she ends up at the bottom of the well, in a jail cell, surrounded by little skeleton men, bickering about her. And, it turns out that she has fallen into the underworld, and the skeletons, once they realize that she is an apothecary, cart her to their lord and master, the lord of the underworld, god of the underworld, Hades himself, who is suffering from a strange ailment that has left these unseemly rashes all over his body. And he really needs an apothecary. So she gets roped into taking care of him. From there, she helps him out as another one of her home visit patients. It kind of just becomes a normal thing for her to visit him after work. They sort of start to get closer, and we can kind of see the trajectory of the series from there. Obviously, they're going to eventually fall in love, but it's going to be a relaxing and soothing slow burn, and we're going to meet lots of gods and monsters from vaguely Greek mythology, or whatever else Alto Yukimura decided exists this week. And yeah, it's just this one is just my type of yashike. I don't know. It's very much going to appeal to fans of Snow White with the red hair. More than anything else, I think that series, but also, if you're a fan of just any of the sort of shoujo fantasy that we get that has, like, quite a strong strong heroine with a strong personality, like, Yona of the Dawn, even, or this genre of, like, village girl in vague fantasy setting falls in love with supernatural entity, whether that's the Ancient Magus Bride or the sacrificial beast King, whatever, that one.
Mm-hmm.
um, but I just really like these two. I really like Colette and Hades. They bond over their mutual passion for the work that they do. And they kind of, they both have this really strong respect for, like, a strong work ethic and someone who really values, like, hard work. But they also kind of overdo it a lot, so in coming together, they kind of help to temper each other's workaholic tendencies. And yeah, it's just cute. It's cute. It's wholesome. And I love it. And I've read the whole thing, and I know that I continue to love it, so I'm just very happy that this is in English now. But we have a whole episode about it, so if you want to know more of my thoughts, you can go watch that.
Number 2. My number 2 is one that I don't think very many people are aware, like, exists. Or, I said to Ray prior to the podcast recording that this is one that I always seem to think that Tokyo Pop has released. It's not. It's a Yen Press title. This is another one that we got the full series in 2024, so it's complete in 3 volumes. I've only read the first one, so again, apologies, but it is short, sharp, to the point. This is Adult's Picture Book, new edition, which I think indicates that there was, well, I know that this creator, Kei Itoi, has a single volume, which I think is sort of a prequel, maybe tangential to this, the pilot episode, if you will, of this premise, or these characters, the male character in particular, the main character, which I think maybe is groundwork for this, or the creator decided that they wanted to, I guess, revamp that original idea and take it in a new direction, which, this is a series about a ero manga mangaka called Kudo. He's in his late 30s, and he has his best friend, Haruki, who he knew from university, has recently passed away. I don't know how or why. There's some allusions that it was either by his own decision or as a consequence of his lifestyle. Kudo was very flighty, but when he passed away, he left behind a young daughter called Kiki, who's all of like 5 years old. And so after he passes away, there's a note basically saying, hey, I want this guy, our main character, Kudo, to take in my daughter. Mm-hmm. Which he does, because for better or worse, our main character was in love with his best friend. Mm-hmm. I don't know that Haruki ever knew that, but it's pretty obvious that Kudo was in love with him. So he makes a decision to take in this little girl, but also recognizes that, like, an era mangaka lifestyle is maybe not the best and most conducive for a young child. So makes the very bizarre decision. Well, it's his job, so he's not like gonna be able to quit it anytime soon, because he's very popular as well. Um, but he makes the decision that like this little girl probably needs a family, like a stable family structure. Um, and so whilst they're out, he's kind of considering how he's going to do this. And when they're out and about, I think they're at a store. He meets this woman who like reminds him so much of his late friend. It is his late friend, but basically female version. Very similar personalities. They look very, very similar as well. And he basically just proposes on the spot. And because she is very similar in personality to his late friend Haruki, and insofar as doesn't really think things through, is a little bit flighty, just kind of goes with the flow. She's like, okay, sure. So she agrees to get married to him. I don't even know that they know each other's like first names or anything. But she's like, okay, cool. They sign the papers and become a family. And so it's a weird little domestic situation where you have this, I don't want to say it's a marriage of convenience. I mean, that is ostensibly what it is, but it's like it's just a strange situation overall wherein our main character recognizes something that he really loved about his best friend in this woman. She reminds him of him, but he's not attracted to her. Like there's no relationship there. But he also knows that, well, he's also like, well, anyone who would agree to this in the first place probably has a couple screws loose. Like why would you do that? So he's also kind of on edge because like that's a whole stranger you're bringing into already a weird situation. But he also knows, as like a single man nearing 40 who's never really had any romantic relationships and certainly has never had children, doesn't know what the hell to do with a child. And you know, this woman probably has maybe a slightly better idea. None of his friends really know what to do with a kid, so he's like, well, I'm doing it to help Kiki because she deserves to have people looking after her who know what the hell they're doing. And they become this weird little family unit, and this little girl is very sweet and cute and rambunctious. And yeah, I don't know. The way that this was delivered was very well done. I think the strange situation and dynamic that has now been established with this weird little family of misfits, of none of whom are related to each other or really have any relationship with each other, is done very well in that I think it shows just how much like family isn't really blood relation if you don't need it to be. So I think there's a lot of really not just interesting aspects of this and good execution on it, but I think there's just something really kind about the series. I think everyone's doing their best in trying to make good decisions. I don't know that they make good decisions, but they are doing it for good reasons, and they're all just weird enough for them to work out because, yeah, it takes a certain kind of person to be like, well, I guess I should get married, and then find someone who's like, okay, I'll marry you, like within not that long a time frame. It's sweet. It's a drama as well, so I'm sure there's there are still aspects of this relationship that needs to be explored, but I also think that our female character, she provides maybe a safe I don't want to say second pair of eyes, but like she's a stranger to this situation almost completely and will help our main character kind of work through his feelings about his late friend, because like even his assistants in that are like, so you're gay, right? And he's like, I don't think so. I think I just like have been in love with this one guy for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, okay, well, no, that's
a likely
that's
story.
not how that works. So I think there's an aspect of him. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to all pan out by the end of it, but it's a very strong start for a series that isn't super duper long. And if you like kind of found family in really the most direct explanation of that term, then maybe you should check it out.
This sounds like a series that is very much your shit. Cool. My number 2 is a series that is very much my shit. But also, I think one of the biggest debuts of the year for a lot of people. It's definitely been going viral, like, since before it got licensed, for sure. This is the guy she was interested in wasn't a guy at all, which has been dubbed the Green Yuri, because it's one of those series that has, like, it's in black and white and one other color, and that color is, like, lime green, like brat green. So, yeah, Green Yuri. This one lived up to the hype so much. This is an excellent Yuri series. On the fluffier end of things, it's not super heavy or anything. But it has absolutely beautiful art. And I just really like, first of all, that one of the girls in this relationship is quite butch, which, as we know, is just astonishingly rare in mainstream Yuri manga. It's always femme for femme. Super, super femme. But this is a butch femme relationship, and that's cool. And we also have our sort of butch character, Koga. Even just in the first volume, it starts to go into, like, her specific experiences and insecurities related to being butch and sort of growing up, never really, like, relating to the other girls around her and being sort of ostracized for the things that she was into and the way that she wanted to present herself and felt comfortable presenting herself, which is very nice to see, you know, that it's going into what is, like, a very real part of the lesbian experience for a lot of women. So, and is just not really, doesn't show up in Yuri manga at all for the most part, ever. But to say what this one is about, it is about a gyaru, like a popular girl, who likes to frequent this sort of grungy old little music store. She has music taste that differs very strongly from her friend group. They're, BTS, whatever latest J-pop crooner. So for her, listening to music, she's very into, like, Western rock music specifically. And a lot of classic rock, but also a lot of more modern stuff as well. We had, like, what would have been Willow's newest album dropped, like, as a recommendation in here. Honestly, like, this mangaka's taste in music is pretty rad. Like, I can get behind it for sure. But, yeah, this popular girl character, she goes to this music store a lot. Because she's really into music, but it's something that has always been, like, a lonely activity for her. Because nobody around her really gets her music taste, and they kind of make fun of her if she brings up any of the music that she likes. So she kind of feels it's a guilty pleasure for her. And she keeps it on the DL. Listening to music is something that she does alone. And at this music store, there's a particular clerk who is a very handsome, kind of goth, young, she assumes guy, and she, like, is just super into him. He's so cool. He's super swoon-worthy. He's got all these piercings, and he wears a mask. He's got this really intense look in his eye. So she keeps going back to the music store, like, every day because she just wants to see this guy that she's crushing on. Eventually, the truth comes out that this guy at the music store is not a guy at all, but a girl who is in her class. Whoa!
Oh my god! Oh my god.
And she kind of, like, really does not want to stand out at school at all, which if she showed up with a bunch of piercings and black nail polish and her hair chopped short, she would stand out. And she doesn't want to, so she keeps her hair long. She rubs off her nail polish before school every day.
It's just so much work.
So much work. I'm always like, she's got some pretty, like, large and intense piercings, so I'm like, I don't know how she's hiding all those holes. But whatever. She's, like, nerdy, nobody girl that nobody notices in the corner at school. But after school, when she's in her own clothes and her own style, she's, like, this super cool, like, rocker chick. Super androgynous. Living her life, But yeah, so the truth comes out. This is after the two of them have kind of already started bonding over their music taste. And they've got this, like, rando dude as well, who, like, you think is going to be, like, a really annoying, like, rival in love at first, but he's literally just there to, like, ship his favorite couple. He's, like, the ultimate wingman for these two girls. But yeah, they are definitely crushing super hard on each other. They are flirting so hard. This boy is cheering them on. Koga's uncle, who, like, owns the music store, is cheering them on. They're not quite, I think, No, right at the end of the volume, they start going out. Um, and it is just good content, man. It's
Mm-hmm.
good content. Yep, good book. Um,
Yay.
Nothing deep about it. Um, it's just, it is a type of Yuri that we don't see very often. Um, featuring a type of character that doesn't show up in manga very often,
Mm-hmm.
despite there being a lot of people like this in the world. Um, and also, it's just, again, incredibly well drawn, and um, with two characters who have a lot of really genuine chemistry with each other. Um, who, my gosh, like when these two girls are flirting, there are sparks in the air around them. It's electric, man. They just like go together, you know? So it's just, yeah, a well written queer romance, musical focus, which is fun. That's all I have to say about it. Read it. Read the Green Eerie.
Absolutely. There's a reason it's like a viral hit sensation. And I don't know that we've had such a standout Yuri since maybe, um, what's it called? Oh, what's it called? The Yamada. What's that one? Girl in Yamada.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. I'm blanking on it too, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the one that everyone was super into because it's got a sort of butch girl athlete, and then the cute girl, but
girl.
also like it's a very, I mean it's a Yuri version of Horimiya as well, right? Like the kid that kind of doesn't stand out at all at school, and then outside of school is like the coolest person with a bunch of sick tattoos and nail polish and piercings and whatever.
Yeah.
So very good, and also green, very green,
very green,
very good, very green.
It's Brat. All right. Drum roll.
Number one for 2024. Mine is so obvious. I've spoken about this series before, but it finally made its way to print. I've in the past decided to skip like print debuts for titles that I'd already talked about digitally. I'm not doing that this year. I'm sorry, Dun Dun Dun. You should have been included in previous years, but this year my number one is Medalist, by far beyond anything. I love the series so much. There's actually an anime coming out right now,
as we speak,
for this manga as we speak, and oh my goodness. So, for anyone who doesn't know, Medalist is an ongoing manga from Ikara Suruma. It is a sports manga. A sports manga about ice skating, figure skating in particular. We have two main characters, Tsukasa, who is a 24-year-old kind of unsuccessful or unsubstantial former pair skater who his career just really didn't go very far, who's kind of been told like, mate, retire. Like, you've done your dash, you're getting too old for the sport. maybe just wrap it up. He isn't in the kind of financial situation where he can continue training. So although he did have a professional career, he wasn't really outstanding in any way. So he is our main character. Our other main character is a 5th grade girl called Inori, who just loves figure skating, really wants to be a figure skater, but because of her older sister's failed skating career, just hasn't gotten any support from her family or otherwise in pursuing her dreams of being a figure skater. But Tsukasa kind of recognizes the passion and drive that this young girl has in wanting to be a figure skater, her tenacity, and his own like frustration in his career, and like basically being told, yeah, mate, you know, you're not gonna be anyone ever. That righteous fury, he decides to take on Inori as a student, as her coach, and give her the support that she's not getting from anywhere else, but also that he never really got either. I love this series. The art is great. I think Inori as the main character, like the main skater in this, she's great. Like she loves worms. She's very big into bugs and worms, which obviously doesn't make her super popular with the other girls at the ice rink. As said, her family, especially her mother, is not very initially not very supportive and doesn't want her to waste time on figure skating, but she just loves it, and the fact that she isn't able to do it just drives her to want to do it more. And it's an underdog story, right? You give someone the chance, and then you want to see him succeed. You want him to do good. We have some great rival characters, both within like Inori's age group of very accomplished junior skaters on the professional circuit, as well as like adult skaters who are more so rivals for Tsukasa. Man, it is so good. It's so good. There's a real genuine like mentor and pupil relationship there, as well as just like a genuine friendship. I think they work very well and like propping each other up, even though it's maybe not as on purpose from Inori's side, right? I don't think she recognizes that her coach needs encouragement as much as she does, but they do that for each other. And so I think there's a real a real sense of, man, these guys are great. I just want them to do well. And once Inori actually gets a chance to be on the ice and to show off and to hone her skills, she is in a very you can tell that she has a lot of talent. She has a lot of drive, in the same sense that, like, if we're talking sports protagonists, I mean, obviously Yuri on Ice is obvious comparison of different age group, but like the down and out skater finding renewed passion, and a down and out skater coach for finding renewed passion through the the coach and mentor partnership. Obviously, a much more romantic lilt on that. But I would actually, for Inori, I would actually compare her more so to a character like Hinata from Haikyuu, wherein her strengths aren't as obvious insofar as she's not like a genius talent at this particular sport, but she has so much passion for it. She just really wants to do it. She just loves it so much. And that really shines for other kids, other skaters who are kind of seen as prodigies, as, you know, the new future of said sport. It's the same, you know, we see the same dynamic in even something like Shonen Note, where the novice is inspiring and gains a rival in this prodigy. So we do have that dynamic as well. Oh man, it is so good. It is so good. The artwork, the skating in the artwork is just portrayed so dynamically. I think as a sports series, it's really strong. I think as a character piece, it's really strong. I think the artwork complements the very dynamic nature of this sport very well. Fantastic cast of characters, main characters as well as rival characters. And it's just like nice to see. This is a very typical sports series, but it's very nice to see like young people, both, and I mean this both for Inori and Tsukasa, that to like follow their dreams, that like, you know, work hard, and you can, even if you're not the best of the best, even not if you're not the prodigy, you can still want to do something and do it well and love it and like have a great time. And it's not a bad thing to want to have passion for something that you're not like a genius or, you know, even have that much talent in. All you need is that drive. And yeah, I love it a whole bunch. I'm a big sports manga fan. As said, Inori reminds me a lot of like Hinata from Haikyuu character. But the rivalry between herself and I guess the rival character, the main rival character, reminds me a lot of something like Shonen Note, where, or like Hikaru no Go, where there's a recognition for that passion and the joy of the sport that this kid who's been propped up as like the prodigy and has spent their whole life doing and always been praised for has lost. Or has grown really bored of, because there's an assumption that no one will ever be able to, I guess, counter them. Or challenge them. It's good. It's really good. I like this manga a whole lot. I haven't watched any of the anime, so I don't know how well that's being adapted, but it's honestly like it probably has more people paying attention to it, not only because of the anime, but because it's very easy for like ex-Yuri on Ice fans and sports manga fans to try and latch onto something either sports related or figure skating related. But I think it stands out on its own merits in a genre that, one, we don't get a lot of female main characters for. And although this is like, there's two main characters and the mentor is a young man, but it is it's more so about the female sports aspect of it. In a lot of ways, it also reminds me of like Chihaya Furu, which is another kind of unconventional sports series. You know, I just like girls following their dreams, and I like sports, red-blooded sports series where kids work hard and try to do the thing, and I like when that can be done well. And I just think the mentor and student relationship is done really well. There's a real intentionality in how these characters interact and support each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very good, and I like this idea, especially because again, it's easy to make the Yuri on Ice comparison, but the big difference is that the Yuri on Ice characters are like they're the same age relatively, right? Mm-hmm. They're in their 20s. They're in a similar stage in life. This is more so, the mentor and student relationship is about uplifting and supporting the next generation, the younger student, and enabling them to strive for things that are hard and that aren't going to be straightforward, and that maybe not a lot of people understand in both in their age group and outside of it. So I like this idea of like adults supporting kids in stuff that they want to do.
Yeah.
Which should be kind of the norm, but unfortunately isn't always the case. And so it's just nice to see an adult say, hey, that kid, you know, they want to do something. And you know what? I want to try and help them do the thing. We'll see how far we go. It's going to be fun. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be winning awards, and you don't have to be the best of the best. You're not, you know, having a fun activity or having a passion for something isn't only valuable if you're the best at it. Mm-hmm. Right? And I think that's a really strong message for kids, for one, but I think it's a really strong message for adults. How many adults are like, well, you know, you need to focus on studies and not, you know, whatever, your art, your drawings, your silly drawings. You need to be doing your math homework because it's important. And you're like, yeah, okay, do math homework because it is important. It's important to know math. But also, if your kid likes to draw, let them draw. Say, hey, draw a cool thing. What's your new cool drawing you did? Supporting children. That's what I like to see. So yeah, I've been hankering for a new one, new one, and this is outstanding. Like, honestly, it's head and shoulders above some of the other current sports manga around, and I highly recommend it to everyone, because it is also a seinen, just an FYI for people who are weird about that sort of thing. It's a seinen, so it's not a shoujo manga, it's not a shonen manga, it's for adults. Yes, it has a kid in it, and a lot of the characters are kids. It's for adults. So, yeah. And if you haven't read the manga, but you're more of an anime person, maybe check out the anime. If you like the anime, definitely check out the manga, and vice versa.
Yeah, this one I just haven't made the time for. We should really do an episode on it, so I just have an excuse to do it.
Well, that's what I always have to do, I find, with some of these manga. I'm like, okay, because it's easy for me to say, Ray, this is a manga from Afternoon, and it is really, really good. But we're both, and you say the same stuff as like, hey, this is a really good series, you'd love it. But we're both working adults with a lot of shit to do. So if, like with Colette, it's like, well, we'll just talk about it, right? We're just gonna just talk about this one thing. So read it, and then you're like, okay, well, we'll read it, and then you finally get to it, and like, that was good. Thank goodness you've been talking about it for 3 years.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, that also, if I don't know that I mentioned, but this is from Afternoon, so this is the same magazine as Vinland Saga and Land of the Lustrous and Blue Period and Parasite and Yakuza Fiance and Skippin' Loafer and all sorts of good things. Mushishi. So, you know, it's up there. Genshiken, if you're into that one. There's a lot of... And also, the home of my other favorite sports manga of all time, Big Wind Up, which we do not have in English and will never get in English. But... Alas. But, yeah. Check it out. It's very, very good. And I'm not just talking to Ray here. I'm talking to
everybody.
Audience. Everybody. Read it if you haven't.
All right. Well, that series sounds like it's full of hope and dreams and friendship. So now we're gonna dash all that with a series that this one actually the hype did reach my ears. So, or rather my feeds, I guess. I saw the hype for it. And it definitely has been, like, I've seen so many people, like, be like, you know, I didn't know what to expect from this, but it's amazing. So I knew I had to read it. I think you've read this one too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Audience, please note that this year, as mentioned earlier in the podcast, I was like, that's a Ray series. I'm just not even gonna consider putting it on my list. But when Ray was like, FYI, I bag sees this one, I was like, how dare you?
Yeah.
This is honestly rude. This is the one that, like, there was contention. I was like, oh, okay, well. So this is an honorary member of my list because, of course it is. So yes, we are on the same page here.
Yeah, so this one is Fool Night. And it is it's good, man. It's good. So this one is about, well, it takes place in the future. Not that far in the future, I don't think. I don't remember what year it is.
I mean, maybe like 300 years.
Something like that.
So,
yeah. But this is definitely like it's post-climate apocalypse.
It gets closer every day.
Yep. The Earth has not seen the sun in 100 years, because it's been completely blocked out by these thick, oppressive clouds. So it is always winter and always night. And this has resulted in the death of pretty much all plant life, natural plant life on the planet. Which that and presumably the completely fucked atmosphere in general has resulted in there just not being enough oxygen to go around. We need plants to help us with the whole oxygen thing, and there are no plants. Um, so they've developed this strange technology where they have a type of plant. Well, they have different type of plants, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they can implant in a person and turn them
Mm-hmm.
into a plant. This is called transfloration, and the resulting plants are called spiriflora. Um, and once you get one of these seeds implanted in you, um, basically you have 2 years left to live as a person. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and like you're gonna have like plant parts starting to grow out of you. Like it's pretty
Yeah.
nasty.
It's
Um,
not a fun time.
it's pretty nasty. And after 2 years, you're gonna be rooted to the ground and unable to talk or think or scream. Um, but you're still there. Like there's some sort of consciousness that these things have.
Ugh.
Um, it just, it's so creepy to think about. Um, but that's not all. This is also like late stage capitalism.
Yeah.
Um, post apocalypse, dystopian future. Um, wherein, not only, okay. So, the way that they get people, to participate in transfloration, to volunteer themselves, is by bribing desperate people who need to eat, um, and need to pay for their medical bills. They give you a stipend, of quite a large sum of money. I don't remember, 10
Mm-hmm.
million yen or something. Um, that you can spend for the 2 years that you're gonna have left.
Yeah.
And they only give this opportunity to people who are on their deathbeds. Um, and it's kind of like a guarantee of, well, we can guarantee you 2 years, and after that you
Yeah.
will be dead.
Yeah.
And we'll
It's
give
like,
you all
well,
this
you're
money.
yeah, you're already dying. Like you've got stage 4 pancreatic cancer or something. You
Mhm.
are you're not gonna make it. So how would you feel if you were guaranteed not only 2 years extra as like a human, but then you could just live as a plant forever.
Mhm.
Plus, we give you a bunch of money, which will pay off all your debt, and you can have like hot pot for
Yeah.
2 years. And that sounds like a pretty good deal, right? We're not corrupt or terrible. It's
um.
great.
Ugh. It's like the lottery being a scam vibes. It's
Mm,
like the army preying on the desperate vibes.
yeah.
Um. Yeah. So, and people in this world are desperate for money, because, first of all, there is an oxygen tax. They use
Mm-hmm.
this oxygen tax to pay the stipends for people who are getting transfloration. Um, so people here are literally being taxed to breathe. Um, and on top of that, like the artificial inflation crisis has
Mm-hmm.
only continued in this vision of the next couple 100 years. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just like a simple meal costs an insane amount of yen.
Uh,
Um, medicine and medical bills are just, I mean, It's kind of how it is in America. um, you know, people can't pay for education. Like, college is just a non-possibility for most people. Um, and we have two main characters. We have the female main character. I'm sorry, I don't remember their names, and I'm not gonna look it up. But the female main character, she is she's like a doctor, a surgeon who works for the agency that, well, the corporation, that transflorates people. So she has this sort of cushy corporate job. She's not wanting for, like, she's not wondering where her next meal is coming from, right? And she does feel like she's doing the right thing. So she's doing all right. Her childhood friend, though, who hasn't seen her in, a decade, he is our male main character. And he is, he's just one of the poor masses. His mother has some sort of mental illness. It seems to be exacerbated by the everything around them.
The whole entire situation of life.
And she's not able to work. She, I think, is an alcoholic as well. She's
got a lot going on.
She's
on a very expensive medication.
Very expensive medication that, because she can't work, he has to pay for. He works at a factory, doing just grueling, monotonous, dangerous labor for 14 hours a day for 90,000 yen a month, I think. Or is it a year? A month, I think.
It's very little. Very little for terrible job. So
he doesn't eat a lot of days, and his mother turns murderous if she doesn't have her medication. Yes. So the chapter where we're introduced to, like, his situation is, like, the emotional experience of reading it. Like, the depth of post-capitalist despair that this series captures is, something that I think we've all felt in our darkest moments. It's just this deep, bottomless despair and this, like, exasperation at the fact that things have gotten to this point. Obviously, this oppressive bank of black clouds over everything is a metaphor for capitalism. Obviously, the transfloration is a metaphor for capitalism. All of this, like, very oppressive sci-fi imagery is for one purpose, man. Really drilling it into your head. But, so, what happens to our male main character is he just hits a breaking point. He doesn't have money for food. He doesn't have money for his mom's meds. She's come at him with a knife. And he's so hungry, and he's so tired, and work is endless, but it doesn't get him anything. He can't pay his bills. and people just keep asking more of him for
Mm.
more money that he doesn't have, for more hours that he can't give because he's exhausted and starving. Um, so he attempts suicide, essentially, but his goal is not to die. His
Mm-hmm.
goal is to find himself outside the corporation that transflorates people. um, and be like, oh my god, I'm dying. I don't know how this happened. Um,
Wasn't
obviously,
me, I swear.
obviously they can tell that he did this to himself, which is a big no-no. Um,
Mm.
um, there's like this whole ethical debate going on about like, oh, we have to only transflorate people who are on their deathbeds because it's truly an awful thing that we're doing to them. And we don't want, everybody to show up at our door to be turned into a plant for this stipend that we're giving out. But
Mm-hmm.
luckily, his childhood friend happens to be the doctor, so um, he does end up getting transflorated, finds himself with a rather useful ability that he can, even though he's very early in his transfloration process, he's still very much a human. He can sort of sense the thought patterns of completely transflorated spiriflora. He can understand, and spiriflora are like empathetic, like they can, they sort of respond emotionally to the emotions around them.
Yeah.
And he can pick up on that emotional response.
Mm-hmm.
Which is very useful if you are, for example, trying to solve a murder or something. Um, so he kind of gets hired in as a temp worker by this corporation. He's working with his childhood friend to locate particular spiriflora for basically the corporation gets a lot of letters that are requests to find particular spiriflora for various reasons. In the past, they've basically just thrown them in the furnace because they're like, once you're a tree, you're not even real anymore. Like, how are we gonna find a tree in a forest?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So of course the corrupt corporation is like, yeah, we'll find this person for you. Totally. And they just throw it in an incinerator.
Yeah.
But the female main character, she feels very strongly that those letters should be answered, that these are problems worth solving. She has one of her own that she needs solved. And she recognizes that our male main character's like ability to read the thought patterns of spiriflora is exactly what she needs to make this a reality. So he gets hired on, which he's very thrilled about because like his stipend did not go very far past paying his intense amounts of debt.
Yeah.
And like he's being offered more money as a salary than he's ever seen. Like it's not even that much. Like it's not even that much of a salary, but he's like job stability and like money that is more than my rent is. Whoa.
Yeah. Oh my god. Oh my god.
So he ends up getting hired on to do that. from there on, we have kind of a series of, I don't know, like mysteries. He has to solve people's Spiriflora related problems by
Yep.
finding particular plants that used to be particular people. As we get into the third volume, we get what I assume is going to be more the trajectory of the series in a more long term way, which is more action oriented. There's a serial killer who is a Spiriflora. And of course, only he can find her. So, yeah, it's, I didn't know what to expect going in, except that other people were saying it was good.
Yeah.
But it's good.
It's really freaking good. It's really freaking good.
I love the two main characters so much. The male main character, he's definitely my little Blorbo. He's... You'd expect him to be so, like, stoic and, like, you know, gritty, seinen, dystopian hero, but he's, like... He's a really emotional dude. He, like... You know, the world has beaten him down so bad, but, like, he finds little things to enjoy. He cries really easily. He cares so deeply about, like, the people who show care to him. And that's what really, like, brings things, like, because obviously this is such a dark world that they live in, literally. But the characters all care so deeply, like, they're so human. They want to love, they want to be happy, they want to care for each other, and it's just the world that keeps shutting them down at every turn. And I value that perspective, like, so much. It's like, no matter how horrible things get, like, people are still want to be loving, empathetic, passionate creatures. And just seeing those little bits of humanity poking through, you know, like a flower through the sidewalk crack, is, like, so important. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I fully agree. It's one of those series that, like, it could be so easy to be just, like, very cynical. I mean, it's hugely cynical, but, like, just gritty, dark. Oh, we gotta...
Humanity is awful.
Humanity is the worst, and also...
It's a dog-eat-dog world.
And to your point, like, the main character could have been so miserable to read about, so miserable to have as a main character, but he's very earnest, and he's just so beat down from his situation and desperate and tired that you understand, like, why he made the decision that he did to become this, like, Spiriflora, right? He's just, there's no way out. It was beyond comprehension and beyond human, like, ability. There's a desperation here. But at the same time, he's not like a person who makes bad decisions with money because they're irresponsible or have some kind of addiction to, you know, the rush of spending money. He's in this situation because life is shit and capitalism, and, like, he has he's looking after someone he cares about. His mother is so completely reliant on him, and he goes out every day to work to afford her medicine that when he gets home she tries to stab him, and that is his life. That is his life, and even though it could be so easy for him to completely abandon her, to run away and try and start a new life and do something different, escape that situation, he can't do that because it's not in him to do that. So it's, although like as you said, this is a very incredibly bleak setting, I think the two main characters show that there's still a lot of hope and care and want for things to be done and for people to help each other, and selflessness versus selfishness is still really, really, it still exists, and although the world might be burning around them, you can still try to be a good person and not fall into being terrible because everything else is terrible.
Well, and almost that, like, you have to. Yeah. Like, these people who are being so downtrodden, like, if they don't look out for each other, who's gonna look out for them, you know? Mm-hmm. And you see this not just with the two main characters, but also with the people that they help. The pianist girl. Yes. The resolution of her story is just very complicated, very rooted in the hardship that she and her father have experienced because of the way the world is. Mm-hmm. But it's just very... There's love there. There's solidarity there. There's, the value of being moved by a piece of art, even when everything else is going wrong. The current storyline with the serial killer, like, once you find out the nature of that entity, I feel like it's so indicative of what the series as a whole is trying to get across about capitalism and about humanity in capitalism, and it's heartbreaking and it's awful, and it's human. Also, the art's cool in this series. It's very sketchy, very rough, but very expressive, and there's a lot of great, like, horror imagery in here with, seems to be a recurring theme on this podcast, people turning into plants. Plant-related body horror. So, yeah. That's my number one for the year. Full Night.
Honestly, this is one that it's available in print. It's also available to read, I think, in its entirety on the Shonen Jump app. It's still ongoing, so I don't know whether there's a gap between, like, volume released chapters and current chapters, but it's one that is in the library there, so if you're wanting to read it, you should read it. Like, everyone should read it. It's good and creepy and just very it's a standout this year, and you can understand why it is so popular. I think this one is also getting an anime. I might be misremembering. But if you're wanting to try it, check it out on Shonen Jump. Like, what, you can't lose anything. You already have the subscription, presumably. And if you don't, it's $3. So, try it. And then... Try it, and if you don't like it, then what have you lost? $3. Well, you haven't lost it, because you can then read something else that you do like. Like, I don't know.
Berserk.
You can't read Berserk on the Shonen Jump app. You can read, I don't know, Dragon Ball for the 14th
Dragon Ball.
time.
Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know. One quick connection that I wanted to make that might convince more people to read it. I don't know. I'm currently working my way through Disco Elysium, the video game. And I get a similar emotional experience from playing that game as I did reading Fool Knight. So if you like that masterpiece of a game, I got a manga for you. Just read it.
And with that, we have come to the end of 2024. Not only for our amazing manga releases and favorite releases for the year, but also literally because it is mid-January 2025.
Yep. It's what it is.
So
it happens.
It is what it is. Next month we'll be returning for February, our Valentine's Day series. I don't know that we've made a decision on what we're doing.
We have
not. We have not. So
stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We'll keep you posted. And if you want to be posted, if you want to stay posted, you can follow me on Blue Sky, the butterfly place. As to what my account is, I still can never remember. I believe it's just simply g@bluesky.com. Ray is Whimsical Pics. Yeah, is that right?
That is correct.
Those will be linked.
Oh, nope, I'm Whimpics.
Whimpics, that's right. Whimpics on Blue Sky. As per usual, this will be available on my YouTube channel, so you can follow the podcast there. But you can also follow the latest episodes of these podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you get your usual podcasts. And thank you for spending another year with us, guys. It's always amazing to see that people actually listen and care and want to hear us talking about comics for several hours.
Yep.
Aside from that, we did have a really good year. We briefly talked about some disappointments and issues with manga this year, but overall, not nearly anything as bad as last year's. Well, 2023, I should say, because that is... Oh, my goodness.
The Darwin incident is truly singular.
We have not yet found something that made us nearly as confused, enraged, and abhorred as Darwin incident. And let's hope we never do. But
truly.
So no haters episode this year. So we can just talk about all the things we did enjoy. Yeah. Aside from that, I don't think we have anything else to plug, but I hope everyone had a wonderful end of the year, a wonderful New Year's, and hopefully a strong 2025.
Bye, guys.
Bye.